Great to see you. So, full and fair disclosure, this is the first time I've seen Mike DiNucci today. Have we discussed this prior?
No.
Have we prepared?
Very little, nothing.
Is it going to be obvious?
I hope not.
Hey, look, nobody went to see Evel Knievel actually make it over the 22 yellow school buses. So if this crashes and burns, at least it'll be entertaining. So, Mike, first of all, tell us kind of what ChargePoint is and does and how it fits into the kind of ecosystem for your customers.
Happy to do that. And I'm glad you referenced Evel Knievel, Mike, because obviously I am built for speed. Actually, before we start, can everybody smile for me? I'm going to show this picture to my kids at bedtime tonight to prove to them that in some parts of the world, people actually do listen to me. Maybe not them when it comes to bedtime, but that'll be very helpful. So I'm thrilled to be here, Mike, and I'd like to thank you and Andrew and Gary and the rest of the Constellation team for the gracious invitation. It's really an honor to be included. ChargePoint is an intelligent charging system company. So what we do is we make charging stations and software to power electric vehicles. We were founded in 2007. We have more than 25,000 charging stations in the ground now across the country, and we have stations ranging from a home system that you'd put on your wall for a couple $100 all the way up to a DC fast charging station that will charge a Tesla in minutes. That's a much, much more expensive system. And Constellation has been a great friend to ChargePoint. They actually came on board a couple of years ago as an investor and have been really instrumental in helping to introduce us to customers and people that they think we should interface with.
And tell us about the model. Who owns the charging infrastructure, and what does ChargePoint do in that model? Like, what's your essential value add?
Sure. So there's been a lot of paradigms. There's been a lot of models tried, and what we have believed from day one is that the proper modality is to let the free market decide for the stations to be owned by a host, and that host could be a retailer, it could be a hotel, it could be a hospital, it could be a restaurant, or it could be a workplace providing this as an amenity to their employees. It could be a city, what we call a municipality. Every one of those different vertical segments have different reasons for putting in charging stations. What ChargePoint does is just provide the actual station itself, and then also a layer of intelligent software and a wireless networking technology so that the driver can not just find out where there is a charging station, but are those charging stations in use now, or are they available? And also to be able to send text messages to drivers to let you know when the battery is full, please come move your car, there's somebody waiting for that spot, to try and maximize the asset.
And what is ChargePoint? I mean, let's take a step back. Think about EV penetration and EV uptake and the concern about range anxiety. How does ChargePoint help to solve the range anxiety issue for EV drivers?
Sure. So it really is an issue that is ongoing, and a lot of it has to do with battery capacity and the cost and efficiency of lithium-ion batteries to power vehicles. The bottom line is that for a standard range vehicle, something that would take you 200 to 300 miles, which is a Tesla, it's going to have to retail for over $100,000. An affordable car for the masses, something that's under $30,000, like a Nissan Leaf, has two limitations. One, it's hideously ugly. And then the second thing is that it only has a range of about 85 miles. So for some people that fits into their daily life, their workaday schedules. ChargePoint has 4 ellipses that we like to try and cover. We call these at home, at work, around town, and out of town. And we believe that everybody, no matter where they are or where their day takes them, are going to look to charge an electric vehicle in one of those 4 places.
And so, correct me if I'm wrong, but I kind of think about it the way I think about charging my phone, topping up all the time. Is that, is that right? Can you unpack that a little bit?
Absolutely. It's not most people do not wait for their phone to drain all the way to 0 before they plug it in. You plug it in when it's a kind of a target of opportunity, so to speak. And so electric vehicles are no different. People arrive at work and they may still have 80% of their battery range left, but if there's a charging station outside their building, they will plug their car into it to top it off to 100% by the time they're leaving at the end of the day.
And in private sector, so take out municipality for a second, in private sector, what are the motivations of your customers to buy the ChargePoint product? What are they after? What are they trying to solve for their employees or their customers?
Sure. So it really varies depending on who you're talking to. So some of our customers, like Target, Kohl's, Walgreens, they're installing charging stations as an inducement, right? They're trying to get more customers to come more often and hopefully stay in the store longer. So that's called dwell time. And if you can increase that positively, most retailers will tell you that the longer they can keep somebody in the store, the more revenue that represents for them. Our workplace customers, which is the largest segment of our revenue, these are companies like Google, Apple, Microsoft, eBay, Facebook, HP, Oracle. They all have put in charging stations, one, to compete with one another and make sure that they have all the amenities that all the other big boys have in the marketplace to attract talent, but also to keep them happy. So it sort of is the amenity of the moment. It used to be a cafeteria on site, now they all have that. It used to be an on-site gym or a sand volleyball court or a massage therapist on site. All that stuff has been done. Free dry cleaning or car detailing services, passé. Now you have to have charging stations in your parking lot.
So true or false? True or false? EV charging's not for me because I don't live and work in California.
Completely untrue. More than half of all electric vehicles that are sold in the United States are outside of California, and almost 15,000 of our charging stations are in states other than California.
So when I was a kid, 7 years old or so, I was promised a flying car by about now. I don't have it. I also don't have an EV. Tell us about ChargePoint's view on EV penetration, and when do EVs actually become kind of a meaningful piece of the transportation puzzle in the U.S.?
Well, what I like to say is that the EV industry today is very similar to the mobile phone industry. And the EV industry right now is about where the mobile phone industry was in, I would say, 1988 or 89. They existed, but they were a niche play. They weren't for everybody. Why? Well, the batteries were too expensive. They were too big and clunky. You either carried a backpack with your cell phone in it, or it was that big whippy military thing with the long antenna on it. After about 10 years, the technology matured to a point where it could be cheap enough for everybody to own and operate. In addition to that, originally in the mid to late 80s, the cost of calling was too expensive. The network wasn't very mature either, so you didn't have very much range. You felt very limited. So the parallels, the overlays between that and the EV industry are startlingly similar. And I think that over the next few years, as battery costs come down per kilowatt, and so to me, the inflection point will be, instead of having a battery pack that's the size of a suitcase that's 80 miles and costs $15,000, when we get a battery pack that's the size of a briefcase or a laptop that goes 200 miles and costs a couple $1,000, that's when you'll see the flip, Mike.
And you mentioned the lack of beauty, as we will say, of the Leaf. What's your view on kind of the automobile manufacturers catching up design to what the public wants to buy?
Some of them seem to be going in the other direction, honestly. For example, the BMW i3 came out, and to me that looks like a really ugly New Balance running shoe. I don't know why they made the car that way. BMW makes beautiful, beautiful machines, and I was very anxious, and I was talking to Martin, who was one of the technology folks up here before the panel. He was driving a BMW Active E, which looked like a 1 Series or a 3 Series vehicle. Beautiful. For whatever reason, BMW decided their primary design motivator was, we've got to make this thing as ugly as possible so that it really stands out that it's an electric vehicle. The only car company that really seems to have embraced industrial design as an art form is Tesla. And so, for example, I drove from my office to the airport yesterday morning in a Tesla, and I put it on autopilot. So I just said, I'm going to San Francisco Airport. I live in Northern California. Please take me there. I sat in the front seat. I did not look at the road. I looked at my phone the entire time. and the car literally drove me to the airport and parked itself. So I think once you start seeing technologies like that, that exists not in flying car land, not from, you know, the Jetsons, from the cartoons of our youth, but it actually becomes real life, and it's approachable, and it's something that becomes promulgated out to the masses, I think that then you'll see a switch.
Cool. Now, switch gears a little bit for the last couple minutes we have. Earlier I talked a little bit about culture and this culture of innovation and change. You've been with ChargePoint, what, 7 years now, 8 years, something like that?
Yeah, I started in 2008, so I like to say that I've been selling for 7 years in a 3-year-old industry.
Awesome. How is ChargePoint's a venture-backed startup company? Talk to me about just culture of innovation. How do you guys continue to stay relevant? How do you keep up with yourselves and with the market? And what lessons can some of the larger companies here, Constellation included, kind of draw from that from a cultural standpoint?
Well, for a long time, charging stations and ChargePoint in general was just a level 2, 240-volt charging station company, and that's it. That's all we did. We had a very narrow focus. What we realized was that the market was leading us to different directions. We needed to broaden our aperture, and so we came out with a home-based station that's very, very cheap, inexpensive. You can buy it on Amazon.com. And we introduced a line of high-end level 3 DC fast chargers, 480-volt stations, and we never really imagined that we would get into that space. And I guess the last thought that I would give you on changing foci in the marketplace is that we're not sure where things will go from here. That we could get into inductive or wireless charging, where you pull into a garage, you don't actually plug anything into your car, it just radiates energy and recharges your car. That's technology that people are working on today. We would love to get into that business, but ChargePoint considers ourselves more of a software company that provides this intelligent layer, the network per se, and the charging station is simply a tool. So think of the charging station as the handset, and then you still need a mobile plan, whether it's Verizon, Sprint, or AT&T, and that's ChargePoint.
Do you have a view on, we talked about CNG at the last panel, do CNG, LNG for transport, hydrogen and electric vehicles coexist? Is there a winner that comes out of that for passenger vehicles? How do you think about that?
The way I think about it is there's going to be multiple winners, and I don't know necessarily who the ultimate winner will be. I think that overall the winner will be the driver, and the loser will be fossil fuels, because I think that in 50 years, our kids or our grandkids will have plenty of choices when they walk into an auto dealership, if those still exist. They'll be able to choose an array of vehicles powered by all different types of fuels, but I think the one thing they probably won't be able to choose is an internal combustion engine vehicle powered by petroleum.
Is Apple going to make a car?
You know, it's funny. Apple's one of our biggest customers, and last night in my hotel across the street, I spent about 3 hours on the phone with a team from Apple, and we were discussing the new Apple Campus 2, the big, some people call it the spaceship, in Northern California, where they're going to be installing about 500 of our charging stations over the next year. And I said, you know, I'd really love to talk to somebody on your auto team. And all of a sudden, they became like Oliver North. Plausible deniability. Nobody knew anything. They were Colonel Clink up there. I know nothing. I see nothing. I hear nothing. So even people inside, it's the same thing when I ask them, would you please tell me when the iPhone 7 is coming out? All of a sudden, they just become completely stovepiped and don't know anything.
So the answer is yes.
Absolutely.
With that, I think we can go to lunch. Thank you all very much for your time. That was fantastic.